So those are the parts that probably scare me the most. So I've dealt with those. I'm gonna keep on moving forward. G'day everyone and welcome to another Breakdown Wednesday where you give me a character design, I break it down as if I was going to make it, and then at the end of the video we discuss whether or not if I made this it would break me. And today we've got a very exciting one. I'm wearing my D&D dress for no particular reason. It is Mollymauk Tealeaf from Critical Role. So I'm going to give you a heads up. I actually don't know Critical Role. I've never watched an episode, but I hear it's very good. I'm sure that I would absolutely love it. I absolutely love some of these designs. I'm just going to say that right now. But I don't know too much. All I know is that he's a tiefling and that he's a blood hunter, I believe. And that's about as far as I know. And I haven't got too far into the lore of D&D to fully know what all of that means. But I think I know enough to at least break down this cosplay. And I'm going to break it down as much as I possibly can. Just please know I have limited knowledge about the world in which this character lives. So let's begin, shall we? So I'm going to come back to the wig and the horns because that's a lot. But I want to make a few comments about this kind of character, because we always break down from the most inner kind of part of the cosplay design and work our way outwards. And for this, it's the tail. So being a tiefling, he has this tail, and there are so many awesome ways that you can make a tail. You can make it very simply by creating out of foam or even fabric and that sort of thing and just have it hanging down. But there are so many cool mechanisms that you can now play with that have electronic battery inside of it. And you can actually have your tail, swaying with you. You can even 3D print skeletons of tails so that they move in the way that your body moves. It's so cool. I would play around with something like that. So I would either have some sort of mechanism. I don't know how I'm spelling this, but there you go. Some sort of mechanism inside of the tail, and I would have some sort of outing to it that is going to kind of feel or look like some sort of skin, because it's going to be reflected in the rest of the body as well. So yeah, whether that be latex or whether that be a sort of lycra type fabric that is in the same coloring as how we're going to be making the rest of the layers, that's up to you. But I would play around with creating some sort of mechanism inside of it that would either move on its own accord with some sort of battery and programming, or I would find one of those 3D prints that you can do where it's all interlocked and it just kind of moves with your body. So yes, I would do that. And I would create a cover for that, probably out of lycra because that's what I'm most comfortable with, but it would really depend on how I would be making the rest of this. So let's move on to kind of the rest of the kind of base layer, which is his hands and his torso and going up into the face. And it is not a humanoid, coloring of the skin. So for this, there are some ways that you could certainly do this. If you wanted to be as realistic as possible, you'd probably look at doing some sort of latex scars or prosthetics to create those kind of, it looks like a scarring pattern on him, and then covering that with body paint and airbrushing and that sort of thing. This would take a lot of time to get ready in the morning because you need to make sure that you seal all your body paint before you, before you put any of your layers of clothing on top of that. Honestly, what I would probably do is I would probably look at cheating, and I would probably find some sort of way that I could do this as a fabric sock, essentially. So, there's a number of tutorials that go through this where you can get, and I believe that there is even a company, I don't know the name of it, it's not coming to my mind at the moment, but they actually do leggings and also hand stockings in the same sort of fabric, so that you can just get that, and then you're all the same color. Not that you need it for the stockings, because he's fully covered from the waist down, but you would create essentially an arm stocking, like a very long glove, that you could either do it to come up to an arm seam, and then even create one that then connects up to underneath the chin if possible. Otherwise you're going to have a line here. You know, it's up to you how you want to do that, but I think that for me, at my current skill, what I would be looking at doing would be to create some sort of stocking that can come up to underneath my jawline, because that is a natural kind of shadowed area, where I would then probably use some sort of glue to essentially glue that to my skin for the duration of the con. Whether or not that would work, I would obviously need to test that out. I've never done anything like that, but that way at least I've got my majority of my body created in this, you know, uniformed color. And that just means that all of these kind of scarring and tattoos, the majority of the tattoos, like on his arm and coming up to the neck, most of that is already drawn on, and or rather sprayed on. I would do that probably with some fabric paint, and the scarring I would probably do that as like a latex, and then color match that, and then adhere that onto the stocking. You'd probably have to do that whilst that would be on the body, but you know, using safe glues for skin to skin, that is certainly something that you can do. So that is how I would do that. For the makeup, I would use the types of makeup that are available. So I would probably have a look at something like Sunset Makeup, which I've heard amazing reviews about for their colored foundation. I believe that you may need to mix the pigment a bit, but I believe that you could probably get a you know, a skin tone to match this and to match your undersuit as well. So you'd need to have a look at and play around with, you know, putting on the makeup, and then probably putting, actually, you'd probably put on the kind of bodysuit first and then the makeup on top and blend it out, and probably do some sort of contouring around here to kind of hide that seam to the best of the ability. That's what I would do at least, and then obviously draw on or airbrush on the rest of that that tattoo up the face. Red contacts for their eyes, and that they're very big red contacts. They don't look like they're going to be comfortable, but sometimes, you know, we do these things for our art. It's fine. And do the makeup, you know, essentially accentuating the jaw, the cheekbones, the jawline, giving it more of a masculine feel, because I predominantly do feminine presenting characters, and then also a very kind of dark blue lip. And obviously the ears, you would have some sort of prosthetic to create those ears, and those would also need to be colored. Now, while we're up here, let's talk a little bit about these horns. So for these horns, you could do them a few different ways. You could either do them as foam, or you could 3D model it. There is some cool like 3D modeling that you can do where it's printed out of, I think it's like a rubber-like material. I would love to try that. Honestly, I would absolutely love to try that, because they're squishy, they fit around the face easier. I saw this cosplay recently that was a Lilith cosplay, and they did this. It looked light, it looked comfortable, and it looked so incredible. I would try and find how I could do that and do it that way. But if you don't have those resources, doing them out of foam, you know, the traditional way of doing horns, and then gluing them onto your head, or, you know, putting them into the wig and then molding them out in so it looks like it's coming out of the forehead, you could certainly do that. And You've also got the lace front wig as well. That's going to be the short on the sides by the looks of things, and then quite long over the top. You've got the jewelry as well that goes onto the horns, so that is something that you would also need to create, either 3D modeled or out of foam again and painted up, so don't forget the jewelry there. So those are the parts that probably scare me the most. So I've dealt with those. I'm going to keep on moving forward. So let's start with the base layers. So we have got this very cool necklace in here, and the necklace looks like it's some sort of chain with some beads on the end or gems. So that would be quite simple to create. Nothing too complicated there, thank goodness. And you'd need to make sure that you lengthen down. Oh, the other thing that I would need to keep in mind is that this is quite a low V and quite open chested. As a woman, and very aware that I am very feminine presenting, I would need to do some sort of open binding safely to ensure that that I have this kind of flat area and there is very little cleavage as such, just so that I could present that as true to the reference image as possible. Otherwise, other than all of this, I could also look at getting some sort of latex suit and putting that over the top, but I think that that would be very, very hot, and being from Australia, especially Perth, I don't want to sweat and die in one of those bodysuits, especially with all of these extra layers on top of it. It would be very uncomfortable, so I'd probably lean towards more open chest binding, and just make sure that I do that safely. All right, so moving back on here, we've got this undershirt that is just going to be a plain white kind of pirate-like shirt, plain undershirt, and that looks like it's off-white actually, my apologies. And that looks like that comes down to being just at the elbows, so either, probably for comfort, I would probably look at doing it just before where the elbows hit. So I would even look at maybe doing like a cuff on the white shirt or off-white shirt, just so that way it's comfortable for me to wear. And yeah, nothing too crazy there. For these pants, they are fabulous. So there's so much like patchwork going on, which frankly I love. I love a good, cosplay that has some patchwork. It makes me happy. You could either get these fabrics actually printed like this if you wanted to, like somewhere like Spoonflower, or I think if you're in the US, you can even, I believe Joann's now has like a printing service. I'm very jealous about that. And if it is true, very jealous, wish that Spotlight in Australia would also offer that. But Spoonflower would be able to do that. That's probably going to be the easiest way. Otherwise, it's a whole lot of applique, and I would do satin stitching to make that real swell on both sides. So we've got the Harlequin kind of pattern over here, and then we've got the stripes over here. So either Spoonflower or applique with, satin stitching. Okay. All right, then we have the double belts. The double belts are, brown leather belts. And the other thing I will just mention while we're here is that it's one belt per sword. I'm not going to go into the swords just yet because that's more of the props and I want to do that last. But what I would say is, because there is no scabbard, I would say that these are being held in place by frogs. So frogs are connectors that you can put onto belts where the sword literally just slips into it. So they're hidden at the moment, but I would say that there is two-time frogs there as well. Okay. So you'd need to create those as well. If you don't know how to create those, they're quite straightforward. Do a bit of a Google search or a YouTube search of how to create frogs for swords, and you should be able to come up. It's basically a loop and then another loop that comes off it that's on an angle so that the sword can go into and be pulled out quite easily. All right, Moving on to the boots, we've got these beautiful thigh-high boots that are essentially like all kind of patchwork as such. So thigh-high boots. And they're flat. Yay! Very happy about that. And they are flat. You would probably look at either creating these from scratch, because I think it's very unlikely you're going to find something exactly like these. You could probably start with a base and then work your way up. And these would be something that you would need to fit to your leg and custom make them. So you've got like this flap up here, but then you've got, you know, long sections, but you've got it so that there's like a section that covers your knee and comes down. So you've got your main piece coming down here, but then you've got your section over the knee. And that to me looks like it could possibly be two different leathers, you know, one darker, one lighter. I'm not quite sure exactly what's going on there, because this one looks like it's kind of coming around the side here. Is it a case that like this is all one leather and then there's like a patch of this one and that connects there? That actually looks like that's what's happening there. Oh my gosh, these boots. Okay, so revising, this is what I would do. I would create I would get a base that would come up. You'd need to take out any zipper and maybe you could do like a normal zipper coming up, but then have it laced here and have this top piece on the top of the regular brown boot, stitch that down, making sure that you leave the space for the zipper, but then have it laced up on the side here, because it looks like this lighter brown one has the laces coming up from here. Yeah, okay. And then get a similar brown to this boot, this part of the boot, and put that over the kneecap. All right, there we are. We figured it out. Sometimes we just need to talk it all out. All right, so we've got, so essentially you're gonna start with a, a knee-high boot, dark brown boot. And then the addition is this lighter brown that you would need to pattern up. Brown to pattern up, okay. All right, moving on to his kind of underjacket. His overjacket is beautiful. I can't wait to get to this. But his underjacket is once again all patchwork. Now, the coolest way would be to do this with all different types of fabrics, patchwork it together, do all the embroidery, because there's this beautiful like cross hatching here and like design pattern on this one, and that flows into here, and we've got lines on this one. It would look so authentic and so beautiful to do that in regular embroidery floss, but you could get away with just having similar like fabrics, but you need to create them patchwork. You would have these beautiful red ribbons tying up the sides, so you'd need to have the sleeves essentially open and then have them connected to all of these points. So the red ties, and then this looks like this is a coat that comes down with this amazing collar. The collar, I would love to do this in applique, just all those tiles, and then having the applique then have the satin stitch of the yellow kind of mustard gold sort of vibe. I am loving it. I think that's such a beautiful detail, and it just frames against that blue so wonderfully. It's a shame that not more of this is seen in this kind of reference image, because like this whets my appetite. I love this kind of level of detail work. And it's hidden so much. It's a little bit upsetting. Anyway, moving on to the main jacket here. So this kind of jacket slash robe, it's kind of beautiful. It has, different type, it's got a lining that does have a moon pattern to it. And I would probably look at getting that printed by Spoonflower, or alternatively, I would look at doing it as a airbrushing with fabric dye to put those moons on there. Maybe even a few little bits of like applique foil in there just to kind of hit the shine a little bit, you know, just to make it a bit interesting. Why not? I don't know if it works for the character, but I like it. And then obviously that lining goes into what I can only assume is a hood of the back that goes onto the back of this robe. And then the lining is also in these sleeves. Now, keep in mind the outer of these sleeves are a striped maroon and like pink. So this is different to the rest of the coat. You could make it with the same maroon that is with the rest of this robe if you so wished, but it might, if you can find a like for like, I would do that. But if not, it's going to be a whole lot of embroidery, because all of this gorgeous outer layer is embroidery. And not just any embroidery. No, I would do this as hand embroidery. It's going to take a very long time. But I just think in terms of aesthetically, you can tell the difference, or at least I can tell the difference when something is machine embroidered versus hand embroidered. And I just feel like this character lives in a world where there is not machine embroidery. So I feel like, you know, it would just read so beautifully if it was all done by hand. Of course, it would take a very long time. You would have to map it out. You'd have to look at all the different colors. You'd have to look and see if there's any applique pieces like these ones down here. This is an applique, base that then has embroidery on top, and then that then needs to go onto the bottom of the cape. The cape also is interesting in the sense that it has splits up the side seam. So you've got a front panel, and then you've got a side seam with the sword that comes through it. You've got a side to back panel by the look. No, it's actually a side panel, and then there is two back panels. And it looks like each of these have got splits up them until just underneath the waist. And that's very cool. It means that for a character that's running all the time or running into battle, it's got a lot of movement, and it also provides a bit of warmth, but it does allow for little restriction. So it makes sense, but it does mean that when you're doing your placement for all of the embroidery, you've got to make sure that that you do your mock-up, figure out where all the pieces are, and then unpick it and do your embroidery flat. And hopefully everything will line up. You could always do like where the seams meet, just leave that by itself until you do all the seams, and then go over it together so that it does meet and it all looks beautiful. I've certainly done that. Definitely done that myself. And then don't forget that for this coat, you do have a little bit of a cap sleeve up here before the undersleeve of this robe comes out from that. So both the cap sleeve and the top of this kind of sleeve here would be connected to the shoulder seam there. All right, let's talk about these swords. So we've got two of the same swords. They're very cool. I like them. I would make these out of foam. I would make them out of foam, and I would make sure that there is some sort of like thin PVC piping that is running along here with a PVC piping because you can heat it up and sculpt that a little bit, and you know, shape the foam, prime the foam, paint the foam, make it that beautiful silver, and get it nice and shining. The hilt, you know, you want to make sure that the PVC piping comes up through the hilt as well, so it's nice and secure. And you know, I would probably do the hilt. I'd probably do the hilt firstly with PVC piping and then wrap it, make it nice and easy. For these pieces here, I'd probably look at doing those out of foam or maybe a bit of foam clay if so needed. Or I would have a look, because I do believe that this is a popular character. I'd look and see if the 3D print has already been created by someone, print that out, and then have that attached. And the same goes for obviously the cross of the hilt as well. And yeah, that is how I would do Mollymauk Tealeaf from Critical Role. Please be kind. Like I said, I've never watched the show. I don't know exactly who this character is, but I definitely love the design. Let's talk about whether or not this character would break me. Yes, this character would break me. I think that I would be very intimidated to do this character because of just the level of body paint and the the prosthetics. I have never done anything like this. It's not to say that I won't learn, but I think that if I was going to learn, I would want to do it on a character that I absolutely love and connect to. And maybe one day it will be this character if I ever watch Critical Role, who knows? But for right now, I'm gonna say no. It would break me if I tried to do this cosplay myself. And that's just simply because it's very detailed, lots of new skills that I don't have, and I don't have the passion to create this particular cosplay just because I don't know them. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this. In the comments, please tell me what you think of this character and other Critical Role characters. Would you create anything different if you know the character? I'd love to know. And I will see you all in the next one. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Thanks, everyone. Bye.